Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I step off the train and deliver an episode to you while I walk home. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good afternoon, listeners. It has been a minute. Boy, howdy. What a busy week I've had, and the week before that was pretty busy too, so I haven't really had much time to podcast. I'm not even sure when I'm going to have time to edit this and put it up, but I thought I should record it while I did have my recorder and a chance to walk home. It's the first episode I'm recording since November started, which means it's time for a Top of the Stack November. For those of you who are new to the podcast, Top of the Stack is a feature I do at the beginning of each month, usually on like the first or second, not like the 8th, in which I talk about how the previous month went. I talk about what games I played, give you some stats, talk about the gaming experience, and then I set you up for the next month. Like I said, I'm a bit late doing this, but I thought better now than never. So here we are. Before I get into it though, I wanted to say thank you to all of the listeners who have reached out or backed the Titania Ascending Kickstarter, which started on November 2nd and is running through November 21st. I really appreciate the support, and it means a lot to me to see some of your names there and see the comments from you in the section. If you would like to support the project further, if you haven't had a chance yet, head on over there and take a look at it, see if it's a game you might like to buy. I think it's pretty cool. I've talked about it before on the podcast a little bit. I'm sure I will do another about it before the campaign ends. But you could also help us greatly by broadcasting the very fact that the campaign exists, telling your friends, spreading it on social media. All of that stuff would help greatly as we try to figure out how to get this game made and get it out in the world. So we are, as of today, funded. We have just crossed the threshold. So it is a narrow window at this point, but we're hoping we've done about 1 out of our 3 weeks. So we're really hoping that we'll continue to see that climbing level of backing, and that we'll get to some interesting stretch goals. We've revealed the first couple, but there's more to come. So please do check over and head that out. That's Titania Ascending on Kickstarter from XYZ Game Labs. All right, into the top of the stack. So let's start off with the stats. I always like these. The main stats for the month: I played 53 plays of 38 different games in October. So a little down from my usual, but I guess that shouldn't be surprising given that I was getting ready for a Kickstarter. And then in total, I played 685 plays this year of 232 different games. So lots of games played. I have not done a great job on my shelf of opportunity. It went from 59 to 61. Sometimes that hides the fact that I've played a bunch of games. Like I acquire a bunch of games and play a bunch of games and the number goes up or just down a little, even though I've ticked a bunch off. No, this time mostly I played games that I've played before. So I didn't really remove very many games from my shelf of opportunity. I also didn't acquire that many games this October, so that was good. My collection size has gone up to 495 from 493. There are at least a couple games I discovered where I just had not marked them as owned. I gotta stop doing that. My most played game this month was Seven Wonders in person and Through the Ages online. Still looking for that second win against my friend Ray Greenlee. We're up to something like 83 plays and I've only beaten him once. I really gotta get a second one before we hit 100 or else I'm, off my pace. Yikes. All right, so the top of the stack list, again, is a list of 4 games that I'm trying to play, and my goal is to get at least 3 of them played in the given month. This month it was Anno 1800, Survival of the Witless, Lincoln, and Arion. Now, Anno 1800 I chose because it is the new Martin Wallace game that I got, and I was really excited to play that. Survival of the Witless I chose thinking I would take it to the Midwest PCA conference and play it there. I forgot it though, so I did not get that played. Lincoln I decided was my audience choice because it's got at least a couple thumbs. Did not get that played. And finally, Airy on the next in the Shady Torby Oniverse games, which I got a couple months ago and I still haven't played. I keep it on the list though because I'm ambitious about wanting to play it, but still haven't. So 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 3, as has been the case for most months this year. I think my top of the stack record for this year is a little bit pooched, but I will leave it there for now. I did have a pretty good success in trying new games. I'll give you the back of the envelope discussion of these, although I believe I've done episodes about all but 2 of them. I played Anno 1800. We talked about that in a previous episode. I played Unmatched. Talked about that one. And I played Escape Room in a Box. Those 3 were all in the same episode, as I recall. And all 3 were positive experiences, although they varied in how positive they were. Online, I also tried Ulm and New Frontiers. Now, I would say Ulm I tried but did not really understand with a level of sophistication that would let me say I understand how to play it. New Frontiers I played a couple times, so by the end of the second game I really did understand the ebb and flow of the game, and I feel like if you put that in front of me I could play it. I thought both games were interesting and would happily play either one again. I did not play any expansions this month. I did, however, have quite a few Out of the Dust plays. I mentioned that many of my plays this month were games that I had played before, and this was sort of returning to a lot of these games. Well, I have 5 games Out of the Dust. The first was Tsuro. Tsuro is a relatively light and simple abstract family game, which we played at Toggle as a way to introduce a game to a brand new player who was at Toggle for the first time, and we were just sort of trying to gauge how into games they were. So we busted out Tsuro as a sort of opening gambit for the evening. Then next up on the list of Out of the Dust games was Photosynthesis. This is a game I played a couple years ago at my friend Paul's house. Once again, I played with Paul. That game is enjoyable. It's weird. It's not my favorite, but I enjoyed it enough that certainly if somebody said, hey, I'd really like to play Photosynthesis, what do you say? I would say, bust out that game, my friend. So that's Photosynthesis. Next up, with a couple friends, I've been playing a couple rounds of Voluspa on Yucata.de. That's a good one I haven't played in a while. My wife and I do have the physical copy of Voluspa, which is a pretty good little abstract game. Really interesting mechanism where you're putting down a tile. Every tile has a number on it. If the tile is the highest number in the row or column where you put it, then you get a number of points equal to the number of tiles in that row or column. That's kind of it. A bunch of the tiles have special powers, and with the expansions, there's a bunch of tiles that have even more special powers, which has this sort of cascade effect that I like. I did get to play Horrified again. This is a cooperative game in the vein of Pandemic, only instead of fighting diseases, you're fighting the universal monsters. We played with the Invisible Man and the Wolf Man and the Mummy, and I'm trying to figure out whether we won or not. I think we did win, but it was a close run. The next and final game I wanted to mention in my Out of the Dust review is A Touch of Evil. This is a great game from Flying Frog Productions with hilarious sort of corny art that is a delight to look at, and the game is a delight to play. It's a silly game about being a colonial investigator. Sort of think about like the Johnny Depp movie Sleepy Hollow. You're like Johnny Depp, investigating some sort of supernatural mystery. You're gathering clues, getting equipment that will help you fight it, and then you go and fight it. It's great. We always play the cooperative mode. This game we particularly destroyed the enemy. It was not very hard, so next time we might want to put in some of the things that they suggest to make the game a little harder, but it's a fun experience to play every couple of years. I was happy to get it back out. That was A Touch of Evil. So we haven't made much progress on the Family 10x10 challenge. I probably have to consider it a wash at this point. Seven Wonders is creeping up there, but almost none of the other games. Gloomhaven, we got to 5 plays. Obsession, we got to 5 plays. Pandemic Legacy, we got to 5 plays. Real not making that one. However, on my 52 on my 52 game challenge, I am doing quite well. I'm now up to 46 out of the 52 games played. I did have a couple where I discovered, as I was looking through the list, games that earlier had met the requirement, and so I backdated and marked a couple of those as played this month, but I think I'm doing well. So here's the list. I did play a game connected to the history of the day you played it on. We played A Touch of Evil on Halloween weekend. I consider that close enough. Play a game with shoes in it. Jaws of the Lion has different kinds of shoes that you can buy, or Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion does. Play 3 games starting with the same letter. I added Horrified as my third game. We had Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle, and we had Harry Potter Death Eaters, Harry Potter Death Eaters Rising. I could have tried to do Harry Potter Codenames at some point, but I figured I played Horrified this month, might as well just knock it out. Play a game you should not have played, bought, looked at, etc. That's Batman Flux. I don't really like Flux games, and I probably shouldn't have played it, but I was there with some friends, and they all wanted to try it, so why not? But ultimately, Flux is not my favorite, so could have left that one alone. And finally, play a game with or about music. I picked the Star Wars Unlock game because it has music that it plays while you are playing. It uses the music of the spheres. It sort of sounds like Star Wars music. John Williams was inspired by that particular set of classical pieces. Works really well. I thought about trying to find a game that was about music, but I wanted to get it marked. I might go back and revise that later if it turns out that's a game I need to play. I haven't made much progress on my leftovers list. There were 55 at the beginning of the year. I've played 3. Oops. But that's not really something I'm trying very hard to do. But it is fun to kind of keep in mind. I'm going to have a whole bunch more to add after this year's top 10, or this year's failed 10 for 10. And then finally, my Shelf of Opportunity log. Like I said, I added 4 games to the list. I added Anno 1800, Back to the Future, Back in Time, which is a game I bought a while ago and just never marked owned. Oops. Titanic, same thing. Bought it a while ago, never marked it owned. It's not on the list. And then Fantasy Realms, which I picked up right toward the end of the month using some Amazon points, so I didn't have to pay for it. And I haven't gotten to play that yet. So I'm up to 62 games unplayed as of today, or as of October 31st anyway. And then finally, those same 4 games that I marked owned that I hadn't before bring me up to 497, I guess, as my collection size. So I said 495 at the top. That's a little off. So what have you been playing, dear listeners? How did you do on your top of the stack? Have you been picking them? Sometimes 1 or 2 of you will come by the Board Game Geek forum and post your top of the stack, but there's no reason it couldn't be more of you. So I'd say if you're listening to this, come on down, post a top of the stack update. You don't have to do all of this stuff I just did. Just say, what are 3 games you want to play this month? 3 brand new games that you're putting on top of the stack. Maybe 1 new game you've never played and 2 that you just want to bring back out. It's just a little bit of intentionality as you go into November. I guess we're already, a big chunk into November, but there it is. So what are the 3 games I'm going to try to play? Here they are. Well, Arion has been on my list for 3 months now. No reason to move it. I'm keeping Arion as the reattempt. I really want to play it. I'm going to play it. Next up, Fantasy Realms. This is a game I've heard about a whole bunch. It's supposed to be pretty easy to play, and so I want to give it a try. I'm hoping I can get it played at the house, but if not, I'll bring it to Toggle Gaming and try it there. And one of the things about Fantasy Realms that's pretty interesting is, or the reason I picked it up is that someone published a reskin of Fantasy Realms using art and characters from the Watchmen comic. And I really like that comic, so I wanted to make myself a copy of Fantasy Realms that uses the Watchmen, but I felt icky doing that if I don't have a copy of Fantasy Realms, because then I'm just pirating the game. But if I have a copy of Fantasy Realms, then I feel like instead of pirating the game, what I'm doing is reskinning a game I have, and I don't feel bad at all. So at some point I may print out a copy of Watchmen and just let Fantasy Realms be at home or something, maybe add it to my college playlist or something. So that's Fantasy Realms. The 2 other games that I want to play, one of them, the Stefan Feld game Bonfire. I picked that up a while back in a bit of peak, and I think it looks really exciting. I haven't gotten to try it yet, but I've heard good things, and I love the theme on it. So I'm excited to try Bonfire. And then an older game that I'd like to revisit that I haven't played in a while is Orleans. Orleans is excellent, and I'm sad that I haven't played it more. And I figure what better way to play it more than to commit to playing it. So I'm hoping that I will be able to get a play of Orleans in sometime this month with some friends, perhaps on Tabletop Simulator or perhaps in person. Now you've heard my top of the stack for November. You've heard my summary of how I played in October. I am laid bare for you to see. Which does bring me back around to the thing that's kept me from gaming very much this month, which is Titania Ascending. Or in October, which is Titania Ascending. Once again, this game is on Kickstarter right now, being offered up by XYZ Game Labs, the publisher. And it's funded, but we have some stretch goals in mind if we're able to get a bit more funding. And so we would love to have you come join us if you haven't already. And if you have already, thank you very much, first of all. But also go spread the word. I'd really appreciate it. It would mean a lot to me. Well, that's about it for me today. I'm just about home, so I'm going to take the opportunity to say thank you for taking a walk with me today. I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.